What do you get when one of Hollywood's most esteemed actors goes head-to-head with a late-night host who believes he can steamroll anyone who takes a seat in that guest chair? Buckle up, because this tale just may rock everything you think you know about celebrity interviews. Before we dive in, remember to hit that subscribe button and comment below. This one's guaranteed to generate some firm opinions regarding late-night TV. It was a Tuesday night in the scorching heat of the studio lights. Michael B. Jordan had just got comfortable in the guest chair across from Jimmy Kimmel. The crowd was abuzz, expecting the usual lighthearted exchange and some promotion of Michael's new blockbuster. But what they received was something quite different, something that immediately became a lesson in what occurs when two larger-than-life personalities collide in a high-stress environment. "So, Michael," Jimmy began, flashing that classic grin his supporters have grown to adore. But there was something different behind it tonight. It was less of a tease, more pointed. "I need to ask you something about something that's blowing up on the internet," Jimmy went on. "There are some serious wild rumors swirling around your private life." Michael changed only marginally in his seat. His smile remained courteous, but his eyes tightened. "Jimmy, I'm here to discuss the movie. That's what we're agreed on." Jimmy laughed, but it was not quite an eye-reaching kind of laughter. "Oh, for crying out loud, the people want to hear it. Don't you think they're owed the truth? I mean, you're sitting in my seat on my program. Least you could do is be truthful with the folks who are paying for your movie ticket." The tension in the room suddenly thickened. Even the crowd, normally full of laughs and applause, quieted down. They could tell this wasn't your usual interview. Michael's jaw tensed ever so slightly. "Jimmy, with all due respect, there's a big difference between being honest and fueling gossip. I've always been open when it comes to my work, my craft, my values, the things that matter professionally." But Jimmy did not back down. Instead, he leaned forward, his tone taking on a feel wrong, a little too crisp, a little too arrogant. Some people in the audience shifted left and right in their seats. "See, you're wrong about that," he explained. "All of your life is up for grabs when you sit in that chair. Your relationships, your politics, your family. This is how it works, Michael. You can't come here and dictate the narrative." Now, Michael's reputation for staying cool under pressure is Hollywood legend. He survived tyrannical directors, grueling shooting schedules, and round-the-clock media scrutiny. But something about Jimmy's words, that condescending intonation of, "That's how this works," struck a chord. "Actually, Jimmy," Michael said serenely, "that's not how this works. That's how you imagine this works. And there's a difference." Jimmy's eyebrows shot up, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, sure. Do tell. You're the guest, recall?" "I've done this for years," Jimmy shot back. "I believe I can figure out how my own show operates." The studio fell silent. Not quiet. Dead silent. This was not the cheerful banter people were expecting when they watched. This was not fun. This was raw, tight, and heading into uncomfortable ground. Michael breathed slowly. Years of media training coursing in like muscle memory. But beneath his calm eyes, you could sense it. The frustration was building. "Jimmy," he explained with caution, "I've done more shows than I can remember. I've been interviewed by Oprah, by Howard Stern. And let me tell you something. Each and every one of them knew where the line was. They knew the difference between entertainment and exploitation. And more importantly, they treated me like a person first, a celebrity second." Jimmy emitted a harsh laugh, but it didn't ring true. It was like someone trying to fake it to save face. "Oh, that's rich," he retorted, "coming from a man who's made millions playing the same macho character again and again for 5 years straight. You want to complain about exploitation? Let's complain about you phoning it in to your viewers." And then again, and again. The insult came like a gut punch, unforeseen, unwarranted, and brutally cruel. Some in the crowd actually gasped aloud, and Michael's publicist, sitting in the front row no less, appeared ready to pass out. Michael, however, he did not react. He stilled, not remain frozen, but still in that manner you recognize indicates something's changed. His face shifted from anger to pain to something else, something altogether different. Danger. "Excuse me?" He spoke softly. His tone was untroubled, but each sentence was cuttingly precise. Did you just challenge my integrity as an actor? Jimmy refused to back down. I'm calling a lot of things into question, Michael. Your performance, your sincerity, this whole slick image you've created. Let's not be coy here. You're sitting there playing like you're this great artist when we all know that you're just another pretty boy actor who got lucky sometimes. The words hung around like smoke, dense and poisonous. You could sense the atmosphere in the room shift. Michael's relaxed hands, which had lain casually on the armrests of the chair, curled into fists incrementally. Behind the cameras, operators zoomed in tighter. They sensed it too, that change in atmosphere, the tempest smoldering beneath Michael's poised exterior. Jimmy, Michael spoke, his tone calm, but with an intensity that could slice glass. I want you to be extremely, extremely careful what you say next. Because currently, you're not only disrespecting me, you're disrespecting every actor who's dedicated years, decades to hone their art. You're disrespecting every individual who's ever struggled out of nowhere to create something genuine. Jimmy sneered, shooing a hand as if swatting at a fly. Save it for the speech, Michael, he said, a smirk that suddenly seemed cruel now. A pair of awards and a decent jawline, and you think you're above criticism? This is late-night TV, Michael. Can't handle the heat. Perhaps you should limit your aspirations to your superhero movies, where everything's rehearsed and risk-free. And that was when it all came wide open. Michael's years of composure, his carefully honed PR sheen, his reputation as the cool and collected professional, all splintered like a frozen lake under too much pressure. He leaned in over the desk, not hostile, but intense. His voice fell to a whisper, the sort that somehow carries more resonance than a bellow. Jimmy, he said, eyes locked on the host, let me explain something to you. I didn't luck into anything. Every role I've gotten, every award I've earned, every single dollar I've made, I earned everything I have, Michael went on, his gaze steady but edged with steel. Every part, every check, every shiver of respect, I bled for it. I sweated for it. I gave more of myself than most people would ever care to cope with. I've worked with directors who've forgotten more about making a movie than you'll ever know about making a joke. Jimmy fired back promptly, but something was different. His voice retained attitude, but now there was a wobble beneath. Try to scare me, huh? You think the tough act is going to work on me? This is my home, Michael. My television program. My place. Michael let out a brief, icy laugh. No hint of humor in it. Your house, he repeated. Jimmy, you're not even the funniest guy in your own building. The audience gasped, mouths covered, eyes wide. This wasn't a late-night interview anymore. It was something else entirely. A slow-burning showdown with no script, no safety net, and no clear winner yet. You're a middle-aged man, Michael continued, voice steady as ever, whose biggest claim to fame is mocking people who are more talented, more successful, and frankly, more relevant than you'll ever be. You could hear a pin drop, and Michael wasn't slowing down. Your personal life, huh? He asked, voice increasing slightly in pitch, like a train accelerating. Sure, let's discuss yours. Let's discuss how your entire career has been based on being the safe option, the vanilla choice. The man networks hire when they need somebody who won't rock the boat, somebody who plays it safe. Jimmy's face flushed a deep red. That trademark smirk was long gone. His confidence, the thing he usually wore like armor, was slipping away fast. You don't know what you're talking about, he muttered, but his voice had lost its punch. Don't I? Michael replied, staring at him. You see, I believe I do. You are intimidated by individuals like me, because we're willing to risk. We make stuff that requires people to think. We go into the unknown. You read cue cards. You recite jokes penned by individuals much funnier than yourself, and you sit across from guests who are more interesting than you. A camera zoomed in tight on Jimmy's face as he extended to reach his coffee mug, his hands shaking just enough for all to see. He took a drink, attempting to get himself together, attempting to regain the cadence of his own show. But Michael wasn't finished. Jimmy slammed the mug back down harder than necessary and snapped, You've been reading too many of your own press releases. Sitting here acting like you're some kind of artistic genius? Truth is, you're just another actor with good genes and a decent agent. Michael tilted his head, looking at Jimmy like he was studying a science experiment. Jimmy, he slowly said, are you experiencing some kind of breakdown at the moment? Because really, this is painful to watch. Then he glanced out into the audience. These individuals came to be entertained, and you're providing them with whatever this is. They are better than that. My audience loves me, Jimmy shot back, voice a little too loud now, trying to win back the crowd, but his eyes flicked nervously toward them, and they told a different story. They weren't laughing, they weren't clapping, they weren't even smiling. Do they? Michael asked. Because I'm looking at them right now, and they don't look like they're having a good time. He let that settle. They look embarrassed for you. Off camera, on the other hand, Jimmy's producer was gesturing with both arms, frantically, calling for a commercial break. Anything to put an end to this on-air breakdown. But Jimmy wasn't aware of the panicky cues from his producer or anything else anymore. He was too far gone. The desperation in his voice, his body language, his very stance, it was all out there now, and Michael could feel it, like an experienced tracker sensing the precise second the deer trips. You want to know what's really happening here, Jimmy? Michael said calmly but firmly. You're angry. Angry that people like me exist. Angry that while you're up here night after night making safe little jokes about politics and pop culture, there are people out there doing real work, telling real stories, creating real art, making real change. Real change? Jimmy cut in, releasing a harsh, unfunny laugh. Michael, you direct movies. You dress up for a living. Don't stand there like you're out here curing cancer. Michael didn't blink. And you make people laugh for a living, he retorted. The difference is, my work gives people hope. When one of my movies is watched, perhaps, just perhaps, they notice something about themselves they hadn't noticed before. Perhaps they leave having thought differently. He leaned forward mere inches. When your show is watched, what do they receive? An hour of fluff programming so they can fall asleep. The crowd started to move, soft murmurs, slight nods. A few glances were exchanged. Some were definitely agreeing with Michael at this point, and Jimmy saw. Oh, he saw, and it just made him spin further. You think you're above everyone else, don't you? Jimmy's voice increased, high, strained, nearly shaking with exasperation. You stroll around Hollywood like royalty, like we should all bend the knee to the great Michael B. Jordan. I never claimed to be superior to anyone, Michael said, his voice calm, collected. But I am superior to this. He gestured discreetly across the stage. Superior to sitting here and allowing you to berate me just so you can feel important. Superior to acting like this poisonous back and forth is some kind of entertainment. Because truly, Jimmy, it's pathetic. With that, Michael began to stand up. But Jimmy was not finished with him yet. In a split-second move, one that would follow him for the rest of his career, Jimmy reached out and grabbed Michael's arm. Sit down, we're not done here, he said, voice low and shaking. The contact, sudden, uninvited, was like striking a live wire. Michael looked down at Jimmy's hand, then slowly back up into his face. His expression turned cold, still, like the eye of a storm. When he did speak, his voice was no more than a whisper, but it weighed all the world. Jimmy, he said, I want you to remove your hand from me. Immediately. Something in his voice, something hard, decisive, at last pierced Jimmy's fog of rage. He released him at once, but too late. The line had been drawn, and everyone in that studio was aware of it. Did you just touch me? Michael asked, voice still soft, still calm, but each word hit like a sledgehammer. Did you just actually physically try to make me sit in a chair so you could continue humiliating me on national TV? Jimmy went pale. The understanding hit him full force. Michael, I didn't mean to. I was just what, Jimmy? Michael cut him off. Desperate to maintain control, that you lost all basic human decency, that you forgot that I'm a human being, Jimmy, not your property. The subsequent silence was one never before experienced on that stage. Even the camera crew, used to moving like clockwork, stood transfixed. trapped by the drama of the moment. The entire studio was holding its breath. Slowly, Michael stood up, not angry but determined. Towering over him, his full height dwarfed Jimmy, made him seem tiny, nearly pathetic, sitting hunched in his chair, coming apart before a live television audience. "You know what the saddest thing is?" Michael asked, voice firm. "I arrived tonight really looking forward to it. Honestly, I was looking forward to presenting my work. I had a respect for you, for the show. I was thinking we could have a legitimate conversation about art, about creativity, about things that count." Jimmy prepared to talk, eager to interrupt, but Michael held up a hand. "No, Jimmy, your time to speak has come and gone. Now it's mine." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle. "You want to know what I think of you? I think you're a coward. I think you're so afraid of being in the background that you'll destroy anyone who reminds you of just how tiny your world is. Michael, please." Jimmy's voice now was so soft it was hardly audible. A wisp, really, a prayer. Can we begin again?" Michael gave a dry, bitter laugh. "Start over," he echoed. "Jimmy, there is no starting over from this. You revealed to the world who you really are tonight. You let them see that when the spotlight ain't shining on you, when somebody disses your ego, you become nothing but a bully with a mic." The crowd was on the edge of their seats. Nobody shifted. Some had their phones out, recording quietly. Others simply sat there, mouths agape, frozen in shock. The atmosphere in the room was charged and hazardous. "I've been in this business over a decade," Michael went on, his voice gaining strength and clarity with every word. "I've worked with the best directors, the most talented actors, brilliant minds, and in all that time I've never, not once, encountered someone as unprofessional as what you're showing the world right now." Jimmy's hands visibly trembled as he reached for his water glass. "Michael, perhaps we ought to take a break," he stuttered. "Let everybody cool off." "Cool off?" Michael arched an eyebrow. "Jimmy, I am as calm as can be. Possibly the most calm person in this building. You're the one coming apart. You've lost control of your own show." That hit hard. Jimmy seemed to shrink further into his seat. He looked around, seeking support from his band, his writers, the camera crew. Anybody, but nobody budged. Nobody uttered a word. Their expressions told the story: pity, disappointment, even revulsion. Michael spun around, now speaking directly to the camera. "You want to know what is actually going on here?" he queried, his eyes direct. "This gentleman invited me onto his program under false pretenses. He informed my team that we would be talking about my new movie, my process, future projects. That's what we rehearsed." He waited, allowing that reality to seep into the quiet. Instead, he attacked me, with gossip, with personal belittlings, with an agenda that had nothing to do with the work I've spent my life creating. Jimmy attempted again, falteringly, to talk, but Michael raised a finger, quieting. "I'm not done yet. And when I wouldn't play along, when I remained calm," Michael went on, "when I maintained my dignity and behaved professionally, you got angry, so angry, in fact, that you laid hands on me. You attempted to physically compel me to sit there and participate in my own public humiliation." The gravity of the words hung over the studio like a heavy, dark blanket. Nobody stirred. Nobody uttered a word. It was apparent now. They weren't merely seeing a cringe-worthy interview. They were seeing a career dissolve. "Jimmy," Michael instructed softly, his tone soft but authoritative, "look at me." Jimmy gradually lifted his head. His eyes were bloodshot, glassy. For an instant, it seemed that he would finally get it right, apologize, own up, salvage something from the disaster. But he did the worst thing he ever did in his professional career. He glanced out at the crowd, his face contorting into something artificial, something empty. He attempted to smile, but it was more of a grimace. "You know what, folks?" he said, his voice shaking with false bravado. "I think we're finally seeing the real Michael B. Jordan tonight. This is what happens when these Hollywood prima donnas don't get their way. They throw tantrums like spoiled kids." The gasp that followed was loud and unified. Even Jimmy's most loyal fans couldn't believe what they were hearing. Michael didn't budge. He simply stood there, frozen, as Jimmy imploded. It was as if he was witnessing a slow-motion collapse, collapsing one Jimmy had engineered himself. "Prima donna," Michael accused, incredulous. "Jimmy, you attacked me. You ambushed me. You belittled my profession, reduced this whole appearance to a setup. And I'm the prima donna?" He stepped closer, not threatening, just firm, calm. His voice lowered, the way it does when a person ceases to try to prove their point, simply speaking the unvarnished truth. "Do you even hear yourself right now?" But Jimmy was past caring. The desperation consumed him, and in a final, fatal mistake, he doubled back. "Ladies and gentlemen," he proclaimed, attempting to stir the crowd, "that is why I don't generally have guests such as this on my program. They arrive believing they're larger than a traditional question, too grand to be accountable." Next, glaring at Michael, he continued, "Well, guess what? This is my show. And on my show, nobody is too big to be called out." The ensuing silence was deafening, more painful than any scream. Michael slowly scanned around at the frozen audience, at the crew, paralyzed by shock, at the cameras which had recorded every moment of what would undoubtedly go down in history as one of the most disastrous moments in late-night history. "Guests like this?" Michael repeated softly. He left those words hanging in the air like smoke. "Jimmy, what do you mean by guests such as this?" He glared pointedly at the host, allowing the question to hit home. "Because I'm beginning to wonder if any of this has anything to do with the way I responded to your questions." Jimmy paled. He perhaps, too belatedly, what he'd just suggested. "That's not what I was saying," he stuttered. "I meant, challenging guests. Challenging ones." Michael shook his head gently, his voice quiet but weighted with something more profound. Conviction. "No, Jimmy, that's what you said. And now, everyone knows that." He did not need to bellow. He did not need to. The force of his words packed the room, solid and immovable. "You know what the really sad thing is here?" Michael went on. "You had the potential to be better than this. You had the chance to display some dignity, some professionalism, perhaps just a little bit of basic human decency." He paused, allowing the silence to hang. "Instead, you displayed for all of us who you really are when the cameras are rolling." Jimmy was actually sweating at this point, his collar wet, his hands trembling ever so slightly as he struggled with his note cards. But it was obvious. No script remained to be played out, no joke that might bail him out. "Michael, I think you're blowing things way out of proportion," Jimmy attempted to say in a relaxed tone. "We're just having a discussion." Michael emitted a quick, harsh laugh, but there was nothing funny about it. "Conversation? Jimmy, a conversation happens between two people who respect each other. What we've got here is one man, you, desperately trying to tear someone else down, and the other, me, refusing to let it happen." Over in the band's direction, musicians were all looking at each other, visibly uncomfortable. Writers were gazing down at the ground. Producers were muttering into headsets, attempting to recoup whatever they could. But it was too late. Everyone present in that recording studio knew. They were witnessing something that would be remembered for years. "You want to know what I believe happened here tonight?" Michael asked, slowly turning toward the crowd. His voice sailed easily, clear and controlled. "I believe you saw me come to walk in here, confident, respected, successful, and it made you think of all the things you're not, all the things you used to be, perhaps even all the things you wish you were." "That's absurd," Jimmy grumbled, but even he didn't sound like he was sure of that anymore. "Is it?" Michael asked softly. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks a whole lot like a man so scared of becoming irrelevant, he's willing to torch his own reputation on live television just to try to drag someone else down with him." Michael began walking toward the edge of the stage, calmly, deliberately, but Jimmy's voice, shaky and sharp, cut through the silence. "You can't just walk off, Michael. We've still got 10 minutes left in the segment." Michael halted, swiveled, and gave Jimmy a glance of pity and something that came very close to sorrow. "Watch me," he remarked. Jimmy's desperation reached boiling point. "If you walk off this stage," he barked, "you'll never work in this town again." Jimmy's voice cracked as he attempted to regain some control. I have friends. I have connections, he stuttered. I can ensure. Stop. Michael's tone sliced crisp through the air. Gentle, keen, absolute. Just stop, Jimmy. Do you even hear yourself speaking right now? The room was locked in position. The tension was not just uncomfortable, it was asphyxiating. You're threatening me, Michael went on, because I won't sit here and let you insult me. You're actually threatening my career because I've had the audacity to maintain my dignity. The audience was absolutely silent. There were people with their hands over their mouths. Others just stood there, eyes wide, trying to wrap their heads around what they were seeing. And the cameras? Keep rolling, keep recording every raw, unfiltered second of what would become one of the most iconic moments in late-night television history. Let me tell you something, Jimmy, Michael said, drawing a steady breath. I don't need you. I don't need your show. I don't need your approval, your platform, or your pretend friendship. He paused long enough to allow the weight of those words to resonate. Something I require, he went on, is to be able to work alongside those who comprehend that success and talent are not something to be ridiculed. They're things to be admired. Jimmy attempted to remark. Again, Michael held up his hand. I'm not done. You said I'd never work in this town again, Michael went on, locking eyes with him. Well, Jimmy, this town is built on talent, on creativity, on the ability to connect with people, and tonight you've shown the world, live, that you've completely lost touch with all three. He took a step closer, not aggressive, just steady, grounded, certain. If anyone's job is hanging in the balance tonight, he said, his voice low but intense, it ain't mine. There was another pause. You could have heard a pin drop in the studio. The hum of the stage lights was almost audible. You know what the difference between you and me, Jimmy? Michael's voice dropped to a whisper, but somehow it seemed louder than anything else said all night. When folks recall this moment, when they speak about what went on here, they're going to recall a man who remained calm, who was gracious, even under duress. He met Jimmy's eye. And they're going to remember the other man, the one who proved himself to be petty, desperate, heartless. He allowed that to rest. Now ask yourself, which one do you believe you are? Jimmy parted his lips, but nothing emerged, just a rattling breath. His lips formed words, but there was no accompanying sound, as if he were a man drowning underwater. And then Michael leaned back ever so slightly. You wanted to hear about my personal life? He said. Okay, here's something personal. I was taught to respect people, Michael replied, his voice firm. To build others up, not to tear them down, to be a man of principle, whether or not cameras are around. He brushed a speck of lint from his jacket and looked straight into the primary camera. His face was serene, but there was gravity in each word. Yeah, my mom, she'd be embarrassed of me if I lingered here one more second and lied and told her this was fine. Because this isn't fine. And then, to the viewers at home, to the fans, to the supporters, to anyone who had ever had faith in him, he gave a silent but genuine thanks. Thank you, he told them. Thank you for being on my side. What you've just witnessed tonight, this isn't a show. This is a warning about what occurs when insecurity collides with power. He again looked at Jimmy, who now slumped in his chair. The battle had been sucked out of him. His skin was pale, his eyes hollow. Jimmy, Michael said softly, I truly want you to get the help that you need. Because this isn't who you are required to be. You can do more. But that decision has nothing to do with me. With that, Michael faced the steps off the stage, away from Jimmy. But just as he was about to descend, he hesitated. One last look over his shoulder, one last truth. You know what's actually sad about all this? He said. I used to watch your show. I used to think you were funny. I respected what you did. He shook his head barely. But tonight, you made it clear that the guy I thought I was watching never existed. And with that, Michael B. Jordan exited the stage, through a shocked, quiet audience, and out of the studio. Behind him, he left a defining moment in his career, one that would be played over and over, debated and dissected for years to come. Jimmy sat alone at his desk, the blinding glare of the studio lights drumming down on him. The cameras were still rolling, still live, capturing every moment of the aftermath. Beyond the studio, the audience started to stir, softly at first, then louder, chatting, commentating, getting it. The silence stretched so long it felt eternal, until Jimmy finally looked up at the camera. His face was blank, defeated. "We'll be right back," he whispered into the microphone. But deep down, everyone knew nothing would ever be the same again. The credits never rolled that night. Instead, the show cut to an unscheduled commercial break, one that quietly ran all the way into the late local news. And somewhere in Hollywood, Michael B. Jordan was driving home, his integrity still intact, his reputation in better shape than ever, and his conscience totally clear. Because that night, one of Hollywood's brightest stars reminded us what real strength is all about. That night, a talk show host learned the hard way that some lines, once crossed, can never be unwalked. And that night, television history was made, one crushing truth at a time. What would you have done differently, Michael? Should he have remained and completed the interview? Or was it better to leave? Leave your comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more astonishing true stories.